Despite countless interventions and nudges, the inhabitants of Earth seem unable to change their ways. The planet always teeters on the brink of ecological collapse, with mankind locked in a destructive dance of greed and ignorance. But that's not my problem anymore.
This figure will guide you. Keep close, stay mindful, and don't be afraid to let your guard down. We invite you to join us, to be enwrapped, to be swallowed by the heart of the end. Is that all you're buying?
Well,
Maybe you could buy this too, for your daughter or a friend. I'll give it to you for a penny. I've done 1,000 dreadful things, as willingly as one would kill a fly. And nothing grieves me heartily indeed, but I cannot do 10,000 more. If one good deed in all my life I did, I do repent it from my very soul. Are we getting on with this or what?
thank you for joining us on the Downey Cut. My next guest is a versatile actor, writer, and independent filmmaker from the Pacific Northwest, passionate about horror, drama, and comedy, and inspired by legends like Robert Rodriguez, Steven Spielberg, and Christopher Nolan, and actors such as Gary Oldman, Bryan Cranston, and Carla Gugino. Known for his professionalism and humor, he brings creativity and dedication to every project. Please welcome David Stoker to the Downing Cut.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, David. How are you?
Good. Good. Glad to be here. Nervous, but good.
I gotta say, man, I always found you intimidating, and I think it's because of the roles you play. You always seem to play a bad guy, and so not knowing you, I mean, I'm really excited to have you on the show because I really want to talk to you and get to know you.
Thank you.
To kind of say, is this guy safe? Can I be friends with him? Is he okay? Because I'm like, the dude looks like he could kill me in an alley, and I don't want to piss him off. So it's kind of like, I don't know. Do you get cast as villains a lot?
Yes, a lot.
For that very reason.
Most of the time. Initially, with my very first agent, I was worried about it because that's all I was getting. And I asked him, I said, should I be worried about being typecast here? Because all I'm getting is the villain. And thankfully, I like playing the bad guys. They're almost always more interesting. And they have, if they're written well, they have a lot of layers to them. Whereas the typical hero doesn't necessarily. But he said no. At that point, it was so early on in my career. He was like, if you get typecast, you're at least getting work because of it. So just be glad that you're getting the work. Later on, a few years down the road, you can start branching out. And I kind of have every once in a while, I'll get like for commercial roles, I get a lot of father and happy comedic dad roles.
Good for you.
I don't get them.
Positive.
I get the audition. I don't book them, but.
Oh, okay. They're like, oh, no, I think he would probably kill my son.
Yes. Yeah, probably like that guy. Well, I don't know about that guy. He seems funny.
It reminds me of Gary Oldman. Remember when he first started out, he was getting a lot of villain roles.
Yeah.
And I think I remember seeing him in, I think it was The Dark Knight or so. I was like, what?
Yeah.
He's playing a good guy?
Yeah.
And, he himself even said that he wanted to venture into being a better playing these positive protagonist roles.
Oh yeah, right. And I mean,
worked.
Yeah, but he's such a good villain. Like if that's all he had ever done, he would still have a phenomenal career out of it. At the same time, like people like Bryan Cranston, he can play the goofy TV dad in the comedy, and then he can turn around and play the drug dealing dad, or he's got a wide range of not that Gary Oldman doesn't, obviously.
We're
not trying to crucify myself here already, Mr. Oldman. I'm sorry.
Yeah. David, what? Your last name is Stoker. That's your real last name. Is that an acting name or is that your?
It's my stage name. I was going to use my
Staging.
real name, but it turned out my real last name is Mitchell. And when I first got into the thing, my agent, I can't talk. My agent advised me to look up um, my last name, my real name, and find out how many people were in showbiz that would just come up in a Google search like right away. So I put in David
Yeah.
Mitchell, and there were like 8 of them, 6 to 8 to 10 David Mitchells. Some of them were singers, some were comedians, some were actors and writers. They're a plastic surgeon, but there was a whole bunch that were like hits right away. And so I thought,
Yeah.
well, maybe I should change my name then, so that if someone Googles me, I have a better chance of coming up first. And I looked, and at the time there were no David Stokers. There are a couple now, I think, that you can Google and they'll pop up. One of them is another prominent um, plastic surgeon. But
You started a trend.
if you go like with actor David Stoker, I'm the first one that comes up on Google, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. At least it used to be. I don't know about now, but
Yeah.
so that was where it came from initially. Oh, go ahead.
How did you settle on that name?
I settled on the name for 2 reasons. One, I've always been a big fan of Bram Stoker and the original Dracula, and so that was one of the.
Just saying.
What?
He's a villain.
I'm
just saying.
He's a villain. He's a villain. But then two, a few weeks before I had decided on a stage name, I had gone and seen. I'm trying to remember the director's name. Chan-wook Park, I think. He directed a movie called Stoker, and in it, it's got the actor who's now I'm spacing his name now, but he played Voight in The Watchmen. He's a really good actor, and he's been in a lot of different things. Very, very unusual, eclectic roles for the most part. I can't think of his name now. But anyway, he was in that, and I thought the movie was fantastic. And from the title, you think it's going to be about vampires somehow, and it's not, but it's a very mind-bendy, twisty sort of thing. And I highly recommend it. I thought it was a really good film. But then I was like, Stoker's a good name. Why not David Stoker? Yeah, let's do it. And my agent was like, that sounds really good. That sounds strong. It has an air of mystery and also menace to it. And sounds good. But besides, look, it sounds like a villain name, so it works. Yeah. It works. Anyway, I'm back.
It does. So, I mean, that's good because it sounds like you really harnessed. You're like, I'm going to be typecast. I might as well just go all in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's partly why I did the goatee initially too, was like, well, I know it looks a little like Anton LaVey, especially with the bald head and everything, but that's a classic villain look. So, and then it kind of worked well too. I gained a little weight, but
we all have. Trust me, we all have. What? Let me ask you this: how did your journey start into acting? Like, what was it that really got you going?
So initially, I had started in 2004, I think 2003. I started making independent films with my brother. He's a photographer and fantastic cinematographer. And we were like, well, this is what we want to do with our lives. We enjoy making films and stories and whatever. And so I started writing scripts and then directing them. And that was initially, I had no interest at the time in doing acting. And it wasn't until probably 10 years later on that I was like, to go back a little further than that, I grew up very religiously raised and kind of broke out of that. But I've also been very stubborn and pigheaded in my life. And one of the ideas, I don't know where I got it from, but one of the ideas was I need to do all of this myself. I don't go to school to learn it. I teach it myself. I don't go to film school. I watch films, like the classic, the comment from Rodriguez and Tarantino about how, that was their school, was going to theaters and watching how things are done. And I kind of had that in my mindset, but eventually it occurred to me that I could not relate to the actor experience, having not gone through it and never going to school with it, unless I actually lived it. And so I was like, well, I think I want to start out, in order to really understand what an actor goes through in order to get the part all the way through the auditioning process and everything. I want to start there, and then that will help me be a better director, I hope, because I will be able to relate to them better. And I wanted to be I've always wanted to be known as an actor's director, someone that would really be able to get that actor and understand. And so that's basically where I started. I started looking for an agent. Um, One of my friends, I've done a lot of LARPing in my life, live action role play. And that was kind of where people started telling me initially that, have you ever thought about acting? Or we thought you were an actor because you're really good at bringing drama to the role and making people, you make your characters feel like they're real people and feel alive. And so I was like, well, maybe I should start doing that. And then I reached out to the agent who had just started working as an agent and was getting a small clientele together, clientele base. And one of my friends knew him, so she hooked me up with a meeting with him, and we hit it off. And and there you go. And then eventually he decided to go in another direction. So the rest of his clientele went over to Big Fish Northwest, and I've been there ever since, which has been good.
What so you said you grew up with your brother. Your brother was a cinematographer. Is he still a cinematographer?
Not working, not acting, cinematographer. I wish he was, but he kind of gave up on it a little bit. Once we did so many things, and it just nothing seemed to be panning out. And also, it was really hard to get work as, as not being able to do it full time and having to do a day job and juggle all that. And his job is
Yeah.
very physical, and it's hard for him to get time off. And whenever he does have time off, he's so exhausted from the work that he just doesn't have the energy. Unfortunately, which is one of the reasons that I started working outside of our little group. We were called our film company was called Dentry Pictures, and we've done a few 48-hour films and a few short films and one feature film under that production name. And then I started branching out and working with other directors as an actor. I have not yet done anything as a director outside of my own stuff. And so I know that's something else I need to work on and do. But they're like actors have agents and things that help them get jobs. I don't know of anything like that for a director. I honestly do not know how they get hired.
Yeah. I don't either. But so let's take a step back.
Okay.
You and your brother making movies. What caused that initial spark to go, hey, let's make something?
Probably our love of uh, Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton films and Laurel and Hardy, all of the old silent movie stars.
Yeah.
When we were kids, our parents had a 16 millimeter projector, I think. And so we would have movie nights, like once or twice a month, where they would get films from the library or wherever, and they were on the old reels still. And
Wow.
and then my mother would figure out how to, or maybe my father, I forget who, one of them, maybe they took turns, would figure out how to thread the film in and get the projector going.
Yeah.
And then we would have our movie nights and we would watch. That's where I first saw Nosferatu uh, with Max Schreck, and that was my favorite horror film for a long, long time. Still one of my favorites. And then we saw a lot of the comedians and whatever. So we were just like, we want to do this. We kind of grew up with the movies, and it became part of our Three Stooges, became part of our everyday life. With our third brother, we kind of were the Three Stooges. And then it just kind of kept on from there. In our early teens, we made stop motion photography films with our GI Joe
Oh,
action
nice.
figures. And
Yeah.
it just went on, and we love to entertain. So that's where it began.
That's a lot of famous people, like a lot of actors and producers all kind of started in that same type of realm. Like, let's just play.
Yeah,
Let's just do it.
yeah,
See what happens.
yeah. I mean, at that point,
So
the risks are really low.
yeah,
Who
yeah, you got
are you
nothing
going
to
to
lose.
disappoint?
So David, you are experienced. You're a writer, director, actor. I ask this of everybody. What qualities or skills do you believe set exceptional actors apart from the rest?
Ooh, it's a good way of phrasing that. I'm glad you didn't say what makes me an exceptional actor, because I would say I'm probably not, but I want to be at some point. Exceptional actors. I would say my top two that I can think of, probably number one would be uh, not being fearless, but being brave and working through the fear anyway of just committing fully to that character or that scene, that role. Um, and I immediately go to Gary Oldman for so many of his things. He does not hold back, especially in his younger days. I don't know if he has it now where he could be like, I'll just half-ass this. But even if he does, it never feels like that to me, at least. But he, in his earlier roles, he definitely just went all out and he, totally committed, and that I think is one of the hallmarks of an exceptional actor. Same with Daniel Day-Lewis, although that man also has become a meme because of how far he's willing to go into that thing, into that role or that mindset. Um, but both of those are. So that first would be bravery, not fearlessness, but bravery to work through the fear and go on. And then honestly, I think luck. Luck has a lot to do with it because the right role coming along at the right time for the right actor and with the right director and the right casting director to meet them and get it all. It's all synchronicity. Is that what they? I forget what the, where everything works together and it just, but it's like
Lines up.
magic.
Yeah.
And that's really, really hard to make happen. It just kind of has to be that lightning in a bottle type of thing. Um, yeah, I don't know if those answers rate well with other answers that people give
Yeah.
it you, but that,
No, I mean there is no rating.
that
It's everyone's has their own perception,
that's
and that's what
fair.
matters.
That's fair.
I mean you've been behind the camera, you've been in front of the camera, you've wrote scripts, so it's like that's the most important thing is really understanding your perception on how it works and how other people can see that. Because I think we can't, in today's light, we can't go. You got to go to film school, you got to go to acting school, you got to do this and follow these steps because there's so many different avenues that you get to the goal that you want to get
Right.
to,
Right.
regardless.
Well, and I think it much more nowadays than it used to be. We have kind of strayed away from the mindset of you have to do these steps in this order to be successful. At the same time, there are now so many uh, independent and on their own. I want to say amateur, but without a negative connotation. Actors and filmmakers and like people on Facebook and Instagram making their own little bit in TikTok until recently, maybe. Everybody wants to be a star now and do their own thing and make their own product and be their spokesman and whatever. And so while that is awesome, that also I think that makes it even harder to stand out now as a bona fide director, actor, talent, because the field is so much more thick. It's like that whole question of like, you want to be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So let's talk about your directing and writing. How does your writing process begin, and how do you decide which ideas are worth turning into a script?
hmm. Well, sometimes I don't find out until it's too late that shouldn't have been a story. So that really,
Tell me about that.
really
Tell me
depends.
how do you know? What is it? You're like you watch it and you're like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't think I've ever had to. Well, like once we've gotten to the point of like actually making the film and putting it all together, there's never been. Maybe I shouldn't say never. I'm trying to think. I feel I cannot come up with one right now, but I feel like there was one or two of our short films that we originally did that was like, maybe we shouldn't have put that out. But then again, I don't know. That's a tough question. Um, I guess for me, the the process is what's the word? Sorry for the dead air, but
Oh, it's okay.
what's the word? Not anachronistic. It's a kind of contradictory for myself at least because sometimes I'll start out with an idea for a character and that will create the story along with the character, and sometimes I will have the idea for a story or some plot hook or something that happens, and then I have to build all of the world and the character and everything around. It never seems to be one particular way, so I always have to. I feel like I'm wrangling wild horses a lot of the time, and some of them are mutants,
Yeah.
and it just yeah, there's no set thing, at least for me. And I know just like with acting, every writer's process is a little different. Um, But the way that it works for me often is like, oh, this is a great idea. Now, what kind of person would be in this situation to have this idea around? Or is this interesting? And sometimes I will, before I even put it down on paper, I'll think it through enough and be like, that's a great plot until you start to think about it, and then it unravels. And I don't want to write something that's going to unravel and make people mad by the time, because I hate when that happens to me. And I love a plot and I love the story. I don't know if you've seen, well, I don't know if I should badmouth any particular projects here, but but you can be the judge of whether or not this should stay in the thing. But I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen Three Body Problem, but it was on Netflix.
I've seen parts of it. I've seen parts of it. Yeah.
Initially, like the first couple episodes really hooked me, and I was like, this is good. It's good writing and good acting and dialogue and everything. It sold me. And then I don't remember when, but like halfway through, they made some weird, um I don't even remember what it was, but my brain's telling me it was some sort of plot decision that was arbitrary and didn't make any sense. And nobody in the show pointed out why it didn't make any sense. Everybody was just going, like, all the characters are going along with it. And it's like, and then that broke me, and I just couldn't from that point on. I'm like, I can't do this. You gotta stick with the landing and go all the way through. Yeah. Anyway,
Did they get new writers? Is that why, or was
you
it?
know, I have
Were they
wondered
reading
that.
Reddit?
I think it may have been during one of the writer strikes, and I remember the first writer strike, like, well, I shouldn't say the first, but the first one that really impacted me watching was like 2012, I think, 2010. There was something like that. It was with Heroes, the initial Heroes series, and the first season had its problems, but it was really, really good. And then second season, I don't remember whether the strike happened at the beginning or during the middle, but it just fell to pieces. It was awful. And then they finally, and the third season was not good either, and they finally started to bring it back and make it kind of good again on the fourth season. But by that point it was too late. You couldn't save it. and
Yeah.
and that's
You're
something
like,
I
I'm already
try to
four
keep in mind
seasons
too,
in.
is like,
I give up.
yeah, it's like, well, and I try very hard to, I used to, it's kind of going off on a segue a little bit, um but I used to think of certain actors. Like, I didn't like watching them. I thought they were bad actors. One of them I'm going to name, even though maybe I should. But for me, I did not like him. Bruce Payne is his name. I don't know if he's still acting or not, but he's been in a lot of films. He was in Highlander Endgame, and he was in Full Eclipse with Mario Van Peebles, and in a bunch of other things. And every time that I would see him, his acting just made me cringe. And then eventually, especially once I started being on sets and doing things that the directors would tell me to do that didn't make any sense to me, but that's what they wanted, I started realizing I can't judge an actor on their performance, because it may not be up to them. They may be told something that is just against every grain in their body, but they have to do it, and they do it to the best of their ability, or they throw it completely off into the field, and don't care about it at all. But either way, it may not be their fault. And I don't know, maybe that's me, that's my age starting to come in, where I'm like, well,
No, but
you can't be
that's
mad at people. Yeah.
you're making a good point, because you as an actor, have you ever been in that situation where the director says, "Hey, I want you to do it this way," and you're
Yes,
like, "But that
yes,
doesn't make any
yes,
sense."
I have. Yes, I have. I was like, okay, I will say it just like you want me to say it, but this is not like I would say it, or like the character would say it at all. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was it was very, very difficult to do, and I don't think I would ever. I don't think that project ever even came out, which is
Mm,
unfortunately
lucky
a lot
you.
of things like that happen. Yeah, because of me, just because of me.
No, I said lucky
Well,
you.
lucky me. Oh yeah, it's because of you. Because of me,
Oh,
because I
you're
suck.
like, oh, you're
No,
like, oh, thank God it didn't come out.
yeah, if
But
it had come out,
how do you handle
I
that?
don't think I'd be
Do
able
you
to watch it.
have that back and forth with the director, or you just go, okay, I'll do it your way. Can I try my way, or how does that work?
It really depends on the director. That particular director was not um, uh, amiable to any sort of like cooperation. Like they wanted their vision, and that was it. And usually, if that happens, I remind myself that I didn't write it. I'm not producing it. I am not. I'm an actor or a cog in the wheel, and I don't feel that my importance is is enough to offset what everybody else wants. And everybody else just wants to get it done and go home. Like at the end of the day, I mean, obviously people want it to be a good thing, but um, yeah,
Yeah.
I could just rant about this for a long time, but
That's why we're here.
yeah,
That's
that's
why we're
true. That's
here.
true.
So when it comes to you directing your own scripts, how do you balance staying true to the story and being open to creative input from cast and crew?
For me personally, when I write a script, I I try, and when I'm working with an actor, especially, I try to make sure that um, that their ideas are heard. If even if I don't agree with them necessarily, that I will at least give them a chance to communicate what they're seeing and how they're feeling about it, um, and see if we can come to some sort of middle ground. The only time that I can remember, at least in recent history, that I have ever been solidly sticking to my guns. If they want to make a change or a decision that ultimately would affect or change the plot, like that's something that you can't just because you don't think the character would do this thing. If that ends up changing the entire story, well, we're not going to rewrite the whole thing because you didn't like it. Ultimately.
You haven't had that happen though, have you?
No, not that I recall.
Okay.
I did have an actor one time. They were annoyed with how the character was going and what I was doing with them. Also, I have learned a lot being an actor and looking back now on my directing and going, oh, I was terrible. I was a terrible director. I did all these things that you, as a directors, if you talk to your actors first of all, as people. But yeah, don't do things like line read. Don't tell the actor that you want them to say it exactly like you're telling them to say it, because then you're taking their um, not omniscience, their ambulatory, not ambulatory,
Yeah.
whatever.
They're mojo.
What?
They're
Yeah,
mojo.
mojo.
You're
Well,
taking their
they're
mojo
mojo, but
away.
yeah, you're taking their ability to make decisions and to be that character away. So they're not a parrot; they're an actor, and that's one thing that early on I didn't know was an issue. And my now fiance, she was one of my very first actresses, and
She ended up wanting to marry
I
you?
know, crazy, right? Yeah, absolutely crazy. I don't know, bamboozled her. I think I'm not sure. She's excited to watch this at some point when it comes out, and so I
Yeah.
better be very careful what I say. I think, but but I was line reading to her, and I didn't realize it, and she was very nice and didn't tell me, even though I kind of wish she had at this point. Tell me that
Yeah.
what I was doing was really aggravating her until after the production was completely over with. Um, but I was trying to get the performance I wanted out of her and didn't realize at the time, because I was a newbie director, that there are ways to do that without telling someone what you want them to do in every detail. So, long-winded answer to go back to your question. I try very hard to make sure that there's some wielding, some ground that can be given on either side, some flexibility with the character decisions and the dialogue, especially the dialogue. Like if a line doesn't seem like it works, as long as the general meaning or intent of the line is there, the dialogue can change. It doesn't have to be set anymore. And that was another thing that, as a first time director, I was like, you have to get it word for word. It has to be exactly this. It doesn't. It doesn't. And the more
I'm
freedom.
looking at
Oh, go ahead.
one of your movies, your films, Assassination Birthday,
Assassination
and
birthday.
you have a mutual friend, Philip Wheeler,
Mm-hmm.
and he's on the poster I see.
Yes, he is.
What? Tell me about that story. How did you develop it? What made you want to create it and film it?
Well, I am a fan of the absurd, and I like absurd comedy. Not necessarily like completely strange out there comedy that you can't get, but just the idea of normal everyday situations that have something about them that is not normal and everyday, or absurd, it becomes hilarious. So to me, I originally I'd come up with, my brother and I were talking about, we wanted to do an action film, but we also wanted to make it kind of funny. And so we were thinking of different ideas, throwing things back and forth, be like, well, what can we do that's like a buddy cop sort of film, but isn't? And at the time, we were both playing whatever the newest Hitman game was. I don't remember now. Hitman World of Assassination or something. World of Hits, World of Death, whatever it was. And so we were like, well, why don't we make a story about hitmen? That sounds good. We'll have like these two guys who are trying to kill each other. And then I was like, it just popped into my head, like, well, what if one of them has a birthday and they both are working for the same organization, or maybe even rival organizations? Maybe the hitmen all have this club that every hitman in the world belongs to. And it's just kind of like a thing where like on their birthday, they get special treatment or whatever. And so we thought it'd be funny if the one guy, the one hitman is in on it, and he's like leading the other hitman to the party, but he doesn't know about it. And then from there, it just kind of sprung into, I reached out to, I don't remember how I met Philip, but somewhere along the way, I met him, and I was like, I thought he would be good as a hitman, and he seemed to have some comedic ability as well. And the I think we did an audition with him that I really liked. And then the more I got to know him, the more I liked him just as a person too. And I was like, this is great. And I think actually I met him on the set of an indie film called Keystrokes that didn't get finished. The director and or writer came down with some sort of illness, I think, and it just stopped. But we'd met there because we were both playing Agent Smith-esque uh, government assassins, government characters, government hitmen or whatever they were, agents. And so that's where I met him initially somehow, and then later on, I was like, "You would be perfect for this part. We should do this." And he was into it. And then uh, John filmed it, and we put it together. We shot it over 2 days, over a weekend. Got a whole bunch of people involved, and it came out really, really close to what my internal vision was. And my visions are always more lofty than the reality, but sadly. But I think most directors are like that. Most storytellers.
And you acted in it and edited it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote it and directed it. How did that process work of you acting in it?
It. I mean, it was something I wanted to do with Philip. I wanted to be part of it. I was also at the time I was trying to come up with more projects that I could have as part of a reel. Um, because at the time I wasn't getting a lot of film roles. It had hit a dry spell, and people kept on, especially around here. People were like, make your stuff, do your own thing, like don't wait, create, etc." And so I was like, well, okay, then I that's what I'll do. I'll start doing it, and it felt very self-gratuitous, I guess, to put myself into
Yeah.
the role. But also I realized, and I reminded myself pretty much constantly while we were doing it, that it was something that I was going to be using as a reel. I'm not making myself, I'm not bragging about myself, or I'm not being boisterous, whatever. I
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you have to do that. The same way as like when I was writing the bio, the short little bio thing that you asked me for. I'm like, this sounds pretentious and like I'm a narcissist, but I looked at a bunch of sample ones to see what people say about themselves or have said about them, and that was very similar. So it was like, well, okay, on an individual self level of feeling, it makes me uncomfortable to talk about myself in that fashion. Uh, because I don't want anyone to think that I have a big head about,
Too
besides
late.
this cranium.
It's too late.
Thanks.
No, it's what's fascinating to me is when you look at people's bias, right? We all have bias. I had
Yeah,
a bias. My bias was this guy's plays villains. This guy's probably pretty serious.
right.
But just hearing you talk about you being raised on comedy and wanting to make comedy, that just blows my mind. I'm like, holy smokes. Was it? Do you find it's hard to write comedy?
It is. It is a lot more challenging, I think, to especially to make a punch land because comedy is so um, centric to a person, I guess. And like a lot of people, there's a lot of things like with horror, for instance, that affect a lot of people. You can pretty much guarantee that a lot of people are going to jump at the same thing each time, but not everyone's going to laugh at the same thing. Like there's so many different kinds of comedy, and so when I'm writing something, if I'm writing it to just appeal to a
Niche,
niche,
yeah.
um, yeah, tell you, to appeal to a niche audience, then I'm going to miss a lot of other potential buy-in from people who didn't get the joke, or the joke was too um, specific to a genre or whatever. So it becomes really difficult to you have to figure out first who is my audience going to be and how wide can I make that audience, and then will these jokes land? And especially with for me at least, especially with comedy, I've had to pass it, things I've written around to multiple people and be like, I need your feedback. I need to know if this is funny because I'm pretty. I feel like I'm pretty dialed into what unnerves people and what scares people. But getting that zinger of humor rather than just a ha that was cute, but to be like actual like holding their stomach laughing. Not that I've written anything like that. To get that level of of effectiveness for the audience, it's tough. It's really tough. So I'm constantly like one of my favorite comedies in the past 20 years or so is Tropic Thunder. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
seen it, but I love that
yeah.
film.
Oh, I love it.
Love that film.
Yep.
And I love that film for many reasons, but one of the reasons is it has something in it for every type of humor, every type of comedy. There's slapstick, there's a little more highbrow humor that you have to think about, there's really dumb humor. It's perfect. It's like a boiling pot of humor, and I love it. I gotta love that movie.
Yeah.
That movie's so
Would
good.
you, if you were to pick a genre to work on for the rest of your life, would you? What genre would it be?
For the rest of my life. Oh my god. Um,
I only ask this because I've seen you in a lot of horror stuff.
that's true. I do love horror. I would really like to be able to do comedy, but I don't know if doing that for the rest of my. I don't want to do any particular thing for the rest of my life. I want to be very very wide.
All right.
You
I'll let you slide on that answer.
know.
Yeah, I'll let you slide on that one. I was just curious because I know you have that love of writing and
I
directing.
do.
You're an actor as well. So it's kind of like, well, what genre do you tend to lean into more?
I
As
tend to
far as
lean into
facets.
the horror. That's definitely. I think, especially on the low on an indie budget, it's much easier to make a horror movie than it is to make a good funny comedy or an action film. And there's a lot of things like these days with After Effects and with DaVinci and a bunch of the other programs who can do visual effects and things. It's easier to make action now, but it's still to make it really good. You have to really know your shit. And comedy and horror both have a lot of leeway where you can make mistakes behind the scenes and it can still look good or feel good, as long as your sound is good. If your sound is good isn't good, if it's crap, everything is crap.
You're
Sound
out the
is
door.
so important.
Do you use that? You use DaVinci then? Is that your choice or Premiere?
Right now, I'm still using Premiere. I've had some friends tell me recently that DaVinci is free, apparently,
Hmm.
and also is just as powerful, if not more so, versatile as Premiere. And because of the way Apple's been going with things, I've been considering going over and switching. But I have 20, 15 to 20 years of experience with Premiere in its various
Oh,
incarnations. And so for me, it's hard to just make that decision because I don't want to have to start back and relearn everything again.
yeah.
Someone recently
Yeah.
told me
Heaven
that,
forbid you learn anything.
right, I got to teach it myself. And I still don't know a
No,
lot, like I know the
dude.
basics for Premiere, but
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of the ins and outs and tricks that if I had just gone to school like a good person, I would
No.
know by now and be able to do.
I'm I am so I went to school and I learned Final Cut and then
That's what I started with.
we and then I started working and hired interns, and they only knew Premiere, so I taught myself Premiere
Ah,
just so I could teach them and
good
get them
job.
on a workflow. And then Cousin, the last film we did, I wanted to learn DaVinci, and I thought, well, I might as well just edit and learn it.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Right.
So make a project, and it makes you edit on DaVinci, and you're like, okay, I got the basics down now. So that's how I approach things. I gotta do something in order
Yeah.
to learn it. I
Yeah. Me
can't just
too.
read a book.
Me too.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had to start back at the beginning with Da Vinci, or did you at least have some footing to go from?
I think because you already know how to edit, I think it'll be easy.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I think it'll be easy
Okay.
because Premiere is kind of your one-stop shop, and there's all these, you have your menu and your tabs and everything.
Right.
Where DaVinci, it's all laid out on the bottom of a workflow you
Okay.
can do, and then the rest of it is just learning. In any software is just learning where to go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I think it would be smooth transition. for
Okay.
you.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
it's on my docket to do. I just haven't done it yet because
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you this:
yeah.
back to writing and
Yeah.
directing. If you had unlimited resources for your next film, what story would you tell and why?
For my next film. Well, I'm in the process of trying to finish a uh, Lovecraftian horror western, because I looked
Oh,
at the genres that we've had, the past 20 or 30 years, and there's very few horror westerns, and extremely few horror westerns that deal with Lovecraftian type horror, like eldritch monsters and elder gods and all that stuff. So I've
yeah.
got one that I'm currently working on, and if I could get the budget for it, that would be amazing. The other one would be a sci-fi action piece called The Weapon, which I wrote 87 million years ago, and I don't even know where the script is anymore. And so I have to redo it. But it was this huge action piece that was very much like The Last Starfighter meets
Nice.
the Terminator, something like that. But
Yeah, yeah. Wow, David, you're showing me so many different facets of your personality. I actually love it. I'm
thank
like, oh,
you,
this guy's really
thank
cool.
you.
What as a director, and then we're gonna dive into acting here in a second. But
Sure.
as a director, what was the most challenging part of directing a scene, and how did you overcome it?
Oh, so far. Let's see. The most challenging part. There's so much. I was like, I'm trying to think of like one specific thing, but the idea of being a director, it is a slog, especially indie, because you're doing most of everything yourself. You don't have a large budget where you can pay a bunch of people. And until I started getting into the networking and into the film scene here in Seattle, when it was just my brother and I, we were doing literally everything from producing to one of us holding the boom mic while the other one did the camera, to the editing,
Oh
to
my
like
gosh.
it
Yeah.
was all a two-man show. And so it's hard for me to disengage that part of directing from what directing actually is when you have like a bigger production and you can just focus on that. But I would say probably the hardest thing still comes down to interpersonal relations with the actors and with the other crew. Because if you have to be, you don't have to be cheering all the time. And I have been on sets where the director was fake friendly and happy to everybody, and you could tell. And I would much
He was
rather.
acting.
What?
He was
He
acting.
was acting, but not well. But not well. Yeah, I would much rather have a director that I know is having a bad day, and I can relate to him as a human being. That we all go through bad days, and we're here for you, and we're going to work through this together. Someone that feels like they're in the same boat with me, and so that's what I try to do with my actors too. Is make sure that I'm not fake cheery. I'm not constantly like, well, everything is going to turn out great, but also like not not saying like, well, everything is terrible and I'm just going to burn the production down and murder everyone in the crew because this is
Right.
awful, like that'd be a villain. um so but yeah, for me, I've always found telling someone that this is what I want them to do, and then uh, trying to deal with any pushback off of that has always been the most difficult thing for me as a director, because I don't like to tell people what to do. Weirdly enough, considering that that's what directing is, but you also, I feel like a good director, just as a good actor, anybody, any part of that set will remember that they are a part of it. They're not the director may be the captain, but he's not feeding the coal into the engine, below, and he's not the crewman on the side of the ship, with the anchor or whatever. Everybody has their part and their thing to play. But it's not up to them. Like, they're not running the whole show. The actor, if one of the actors is gone, I mean, granted, if they're like the lead, there may be a problem, but they also need to remember that they are another cog. They're there to help, just like everything else. And I think that's really what becomes the most difficult for me, is when someone forgets that. Whether it's me, I don't think I ever have, I hope not, but I've been on sets where it was very clearly like the director thinks that he is the show and everything, and like it's hard to give your best performance with that too. Like, as an actor, um, I've felt that cold pins and needles, like shame feeling of like, oh, I can't do this job to the best of my ability now because I'm dealing with a tyrant, or whatever it might be. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there was
I think you and I, we worked together on
a few
the
things.
Alliance. Yeah. And even then, like, we didn't really get to know each other. We didn't
No,
chat or
no, it was
anything.
all like
So
in passing, and I
yeah.
thought, for whatever reason, it maybe somebody had mentioned a name, and I had heard it and thought they were talking about you. I'm not sure, but I thought your name was Lee for a long time, and so when people would say, "Oh, Joe," Joe Downing, I would hear Joe, and in my head, I'm like, "Oh, it's a white guy with blonde hair." I don't know
Yeah.
why. I don't know why, but that's the first mental image I got,
That's my
and
disguise.
so.
It's my
And
yeah.
so, like,
It's my
Philip and I were having a talk one day, and your name came up, and he's like,
yeah.
Joe, and I'm like, yeah, I know, hey, Joe, like, guy with long red hair and a ponytail. I'm sure that's not who you're talking about. He's like, Joe, you've been on sets with him. No clue. I have no clue who you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you.
Which is, I mean, this is why we do the
Yeah.
podcast. The years ago, I was working at an insurance company, and
Mm.
taking claim calls, and they'd ask, "What's your name?" This is Joe Downing. Oh, a nice Irish lad, huh? And I said, "Oh, yes, sir, I am."
Oh my God.
Like, all right, well, I'll be whatever you want me to be.
Right,
That's fine.
right. Acting.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to like acting, when you approach a new role, what steps do you take to truly embody the character?
Ooh. I it kind of, again, and like with writing, it kind of changes based on what I get inspired by, and sometimes it may be the 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 dialogue for the character that inspires me or triggers something in my head. I'm like, ooh, it'd be cool if if so and so were part of the character, or if the character had been in this situation, or if he lived during this time, or whatever it might be. But I think 9 times out of 10 these days, the one of the first things that occurs to me about a character, or that I start building a character on, is trying to find something um, that's unusual, that people won't expect about a character, and I'm trying to think of some specific example I could give to you. Well, I guess, like, uh, I'm going to be shooting a film in the next few weeks, beginning of February, called Paranormal Investigators Rising Storm. It's a sequel to the first
Hmm.
Paranormal. It was done here in Seattle a few years ago, and I'm playing the villain. And for the
So
villain, I
excited.
was reading through the dialogue and thinking about, like, how to kind of bring into life. And because of the time period he's in, I started, or that he's from, I started thinking, in era, in that day and age, vaudeville was still really big, and the transatlantic accent was big in the way of talking. And so I started thinking about how I could incorporate those, both his vaudevillian kind of flair to the villain, and make him, he kind of thinks like he's the star of his own show, and so he's going to be very, very flamboyant, not in a typical way. But
Stereotypical, yeah.
yeah, well, right. Although then again, maybe so. I don't know. It'll really depend. Sometimes what I think is working out in my head, I don't see until later on when I see it on camera. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe they let me do that. No one told me that this looks bad. So
Trust.
we'll see. Yeah, trust. And there's been at least.
So how do you
Oh, go
handle
ahead.
emotional challenges of portraying intense or deeply personal scenes?
Um, for me, I like to, um, if it when it's with another actor, for instance, if it's somebody that I've never worked with before, I try to introduce myself to them when we have a moment, during a scene, especially hopefully it's before an intense scene. But and let them know that I'm not a scary guy, even though I'm portraying one probably on stream. But kind of like try to give them a little bit of insight into where I'm coming from, where the character's coming from, in case they haven't had a chance to rehearse. Most of the time, I've had the good fortune of being able to rehearse with another actor before we actually get on set, whether it's a book, a table read, or whatever it might be. But I know that there are films where the actors take roles and then they're on set that day. They've never met the other person they're acting with in their life, and then they're doing this crazy intense scene. So for me, I try to get some time to um, let someone else know that I'm a human being. I'm not a serial killer. I'm not gonna whatever that might be happening in the scene is not. And I thankfully I've not had any roles yet where I had to do something really awful to someone in an intense, prolonged situation. I don't know what I'll do when that happens. I will. I mean, I will commit to the character, and and be as authentic as I can be. But mentally and emotionally, it does take a toll, especially if you're doing something really heinous to someone. Yeah, I don't know if I answered that correctly.
Yeah.
Well, not correctly,
Have
but
Have you ever playing a villain? Have you ever had to like put your hands on someone's throat or slap them a couple times?
yeah. I don't know if I've had to slap them, but I know I had to strangle someone at one point, and they were very. We'd worked it out ahead of time, so it wasn't like I
Yeah.
just grabbed them out of the blue.
Right. Yeah. There's
I
safety protocols in
try not
place.
to do
Yeah.
that. Right. Exactly. Like I've never had to work with an intimacy coordinator. Um, when and if that time ever comes, it's going to be weird. I'm it's going to be strange. But I have
Okay.
definitely done some fight choreography and things. And there was one, it was years ago, and I don't remember now what the production was, but I had to fight a woman and I had to strangle her while we were fighting, like put my hands around her throat. And I think I was lifting her up, if I recall right. And of course, we had worked out ahead of time how to make that look like I was actually holding her up. But when the time came, she kind of let go more of her body weight than I expected. And so it
Oh,
became more of like oh, I'm actually holding her by the throat now. And it looked good. And I think that's why she did it. But it kind of
yeah.
took me by surprise. And then because it was in the role, I didn't know if I was squeezing her too hard. There was no way to ask. She's choking and turning red. And it's just like, it looks good in the scene, but as soon as it was done, I pulled my hands away and I'm like, I am so sorry. Are you okay? I am so sorry. And she was fine. And everything worked out good. But it was
So it would have
funny
been
to,
wise if she would have gave you a heads up.
yeah, yeah,
Just so you know,
just a little
I'm
bit.
gonna let
Right.
my
Like,
body weight fall.
yeah, like, I mean, I'm okay with being surprised, but that was a little bit like,
You know,
are we still doing? And I don't remember what it
yeah.
was. It was very early on in my acting, um, my start of the acting. Something there was a scene where someone did something I didn't expect, and rather than go through with it, I immediately cut off because of safety, because I wasn't worried about safety, and I
Yeah.
ruined the scene because everyone else was set to go and continue filming, but I didn't know that that was actually going to come out like whatever it was. I think it was a knife, or maybe somebody falling and hurting themselves. I forget.
Yeah.
But it was a lesson to me to, you just go with it until someone else cut, and then if someone is actually injured, it's gonna be handled ahead of time. Probably, hopefully, unless you get a situation like that train death that happened a few years ago, where someone on an indie film,
Right.
I forget
Right. If it's
where it was. Yeah, it was very sad and unnecessary. Did not need to happen.
Do you have an example of a time when you improvised on set, bringing something unexpected to your performance?
Um, Unexpected to my performance. I was playing a ex-con bad guy, and there was a scene where we were really intense. I was holding a gun on someone, and um, I'm trying to remember how this scene was supposed to go. But halfway through, I broke off with the dialogue because it just felt right to do it instead of continuing with it. And I think I shouted and punched a wall, and I like put a hole in the wall, and then no, it wasn't like a huge hole, but it was like a dent. And walked out of whatever the scene was, and right after the yelled cut, I'm like, I hope that was okay. I didn't mean to damage the wall. And the director was like, no, that was great. You were fantastic. He was thrilled with it. But it was definitely something that I hadn't planned on ahead of time. It felt right. And like, I didn't have a chance to tell anybody, well, this is what I'm going to do, because I didn't know that's what I was going to do until I did it. And
All right.
and amusingly, if I may go into another, one of the short
Yeah.
films I did recently that I directed, it was called Serenity Way. It was a 48-hour short horror, and in there I'm playing a vampire, along with vampire family, and our house gets broken into by a couple of people who are looking for money, and they've heard there's a safe in the house, and so it's basically home invasion, but with a flip side, because I wanted to do something like a twist, and you don't find out until the end that they're vampires.
Nice.
But in there, the actor who is breaking in, one of the actors, the male, is his name is Nick, and if he sees this, he will be embarrassed, and I will laugh. We went over the choreography for it. He's supposed to like swing the gun in front of my head, and I get hit, and I go down, and then he picks me back up by the collar and drags me through the living room into where the family is. We went through this like 3 or 4 times to make sure that we could get it all good on camera, and there was no problem at all. And then the first time we go in, open the door, he comes charging in, and bow, he hits me right in the head with the gun. It was just like square, and dropped me. And thankfully he did not break scene to do that, because it worked out well, and he was able to pick me up and drag me into the room, and everything was fine. And then as soon as we yelled cut, he was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. we were also using a real firearm, but it didn't have any bullets, so we made sure that the firing pin wasn't there any longer. Couldn't hurt anybody, but it was real, so getting hit in the head with a real gun, yeah, that
Ooh.
I didn't expect that either. That was not planned, but there you go.
But the performance was good. And Nick's name is Nick Fury.
Yes.
That is how hilarious is that?
Yeah, right?
Is that his stage name, or is
that is his real name? Now, he did change it to that legally when he got married. But yeah.
Hilarious. Hilarious. What advice would you give to actors looking to balance the creative expression and maintaining a professionalism on set?
Ooh. I guess don't get lost in the glamour of thinking I'm an actor and I'm going to make it big, etc. Like,
don't get an ego.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Bluntly, yes, but it's hard to. That's something you can't just tell people. Oh, just don't do this thing that may happen accidentally. But I think if you try to remember that, and I'm horrible with names, absolutely terrible. I can remember faces really well, but if I'm introduced to 30 different people on a set, I am struggling to remember their name, but I struggle to, because I want everyone to to know that I see them as a person and a human being and a valuable part of, I say thank you and please, and I'm constantly, I try to be as kind. I guess ultimately that, above and beyond any other advice I could give, be kind to everyone, because a uh, you don't know. I mean, I hate to make it sound selfish, but you don't know in what aspect you're going to be seen by them later on, or have a connection with them, or who else might see you being terrible and not want to hire you again because you're a terrible person on set. But also, they're human
Yeah.
beings just like you are, and so kindness in every, and understanding as much as you can in every way, I think is really important. And there's this, I don't know if there's as much as there used to be in Hollywood, this machismo of like men need to be macho men and alphas, and have this particular thing on set where they don't take, they don't take no guff, etc. But if you treat somebody, I heard The Rock say this, and I'm sure other people have said it before, but it stuck in my head when he said it, that people will not remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And that, I think that is really, really true. And so I try to make sure that I leave set like a campfire. It's campfire, or the campground rule: leave set better than it was when you got there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that includes all the people, because man, PAs, they do so much, and you don't see them working behind the scenes. And there've been a couple of PAs recently that I've dealt with that I've been like, I've just thanked them for bringing me coffee or being right there to open a door for me so I didn't struggle with my bags in or whatever. And consistently, like 8 times out of 10, they will act surprised that I am thanking them or treating them like a person, rather than a backdrop or a piece of furniture, or whatever. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a very long-winded answer, but
Well, that's good advice, though. I
it
think,
is.
and I forgive you for not remembering my name.
It wasn't that I didn't remember. I just thought you were a different name altogether.
Yeah, some white guy. What's
With blonde hair.
So how do you continue to grow as an actor, and what inspires you to keep challenging yourself in these new
Hmm.
roles?
That one's really, for me at least, is really simple. Continue experiencing new products or projects, new films, watch movies, watch everything you can that interests you, obviously, and maybe even things that don't interest you. But and then, well, lately I have noticed I will often lose track of the story or the plot of a show that I'm watching, because I am so focused on watching the actors acting and their facial recognition, and the way that their eyes will lose a little bit of light when something happens, or gain some light, or just the little tiny things. And like Bryan Cranston is a perfect example for me of that, of being able to do so much with just a relaxing of his face, or a tensing of the face, or a tiny little twitch in his jaw or whatever.
Hmm.
Pardon me. And so stuff like that, I feel like, is inspiring. Things that, the more you watch it, or get examples of what you feel is good, I think the more you'll be able to emulate that. And a lot of, I feel like a lot of the acting, and maybe this is a bad outlook, I don't know, but I feel like a lot of acting, for me at least, is recognizing what someone else is doing, and then being able to copy that, to emulate that, and even more so to be able to feel that, like, take that situation, and sit with it and try to make it a part of you, and how you would feel in that situation. And you can't do that with everything, obviously, but and then working like constantly, like, take, for I would recommend for anybody else, take all the projects you can get these days, because I've been doing this for since 2019, 2018, so it's been a while. And I don't take as many like extra roles or things these days, because if I'm just sitting in the background, I am not learning as much now. But definitely back then, when you're first getting acclimated to a set, that's a great way to be able to see everything that's going on without really having a whole lot of risk involved, for you or for them.
Yeah.
But in any roles that you can get, that would be, if they're unpaid, most of the stuff around here that's indie is going to be unpaid. But there's a lot of good insight to be learned and good experience to be gained from doing that as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say is the most constructive criticism that you've ever received in your film
Ooh,
career?
that's a difficult question, because constructive can sometimes be
Sting?
blunt and harsh.
But it stuck with you. I mean, did you learn
It
something
did
from it?
it did stick with me. One of my test readers, for a project, I forget, wrote it a few years ago, but it was the first draft or the second draft or whatever, and they came to me and they're like, "I just want you to know this sucks." And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, well, thank you for telling me." And they're like, and thankfully they were able to be like, and here's why. I don't like this character because um, the motivations that you're giving them don't seem accurate or true when you have this other thing happening here. And like they were able to lay out what it was, and then I was able to fix it, which was great. So that was wonderful. But the fact that I'm glad that they felt comfortable enough to be able to tell me this is awful and you need to fix it. But
Yeah.
a lot of people also don't seem to have that capability of criticism is a really hard thing to accept. And I've just recently had a friend who I had been trying to encourage um, into acting for a while because she's a good actress, but she got discouraged from some classes where people gave her the impression that she was not a good actress. And also, it's just so subjective. And there's a lot of importance put on appearance and and things like that, and you just have to be willing to be rejected. Like I've gone through so many rejections, and that's another thing that I would say, for young actors or people who are up and coming, writers and directors as well, but especially the acting, is be prepared to be rejected all the time. You're going to hear 1,000 no's for every yes, unless you are really beautiful or really talented and don't need to work at it like most of us do. But even the good people, like even Cranston, um, he had something a few years ago, that he had talked about how rejection is hard. He's constantly getting rejected for roles, and he had to remember and remind himself that when he goes in for an audition, and maybe I'm telling you this and you already know this, but for people who don't, um, when he goes in for an audition, that to him is the performance, because he may not get anything after that. And as long as he's concerning himself with what happens in the future, he's not going to be able to devote himself to what's going on currently, in the present, and to be able to be there fully and authentically. So for him, as soon as he's done with the performance, that was it. He got seen, he got to act, and he's on to the next thing. And it's hard to learn to do, at least for some people. For me, it definitely was, because I'm a perfectionist. Mostly with myself. I don't really hold anyone else to that standard, which is odd. It's just myself. But I can be really, really self-critical. There you go. I don't know if I answered your question at all, but
Yeah. If you're self-critical, is it hard for you to watch yourself on film?
very, very. And I used to think that was weird. Like I would hear, like Johnny Depp never saw any of his movies, and there were several other actors who were like, "No, I never seen myself act." And I always thought, well, how will you know how to get better if you don't watch what you do and then know what to improve on? But after starting to watch myself in films, I'm like, oh my god, it's me again. What? What's I thought there was someone else in this film. Why is it just me?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I did.
Has there been a character that you was the hardest for you to play?
Hmm. Um, not so far. Not in the indie films that I have done. I think the hardest thing I have been encountering is commercial work, because that's unfortunately that's where the money really is, especially in this area. But it's not where a lot of fulfilling, passionate roles, come out of. And it's something I struggle with, because again, I often get submitted for roles that are like the father, which I'm not. I don't have children. I have no desire for that. Uh, but I'll get like the family man father, goofy dad, or the dad who's barbecuing or whatever. And so those are the I think the hardest roles so far that I've had to embrace, because of that, because it's hard to relate, and also because with commercial work I never know when to stop. Like how much is enough backstory for a commercial for the character to give them? Like,
Right.
you just give them a name and like a handyman, like a basic like employment, or do you go into their backstory of like it's a Band-Aid commercial, but you're gonna have like a backstory for them about how they were in Nam in '72. Why?
Yeah. Thank God for band-aids.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there looking at all the roles that you've written, you've directed, you've acted,
Mm.
is there a specific role that you've always just wanted to play, never had a chance?
Oh, um, boy. I know what it is, but I'm not sure if I can quantify it. But
What genre is it
I'll
in?
try. I don't, drama or horror, probably more than likely.
Okay.
But I really I want to play a bad guy who is really well written and and multi-layered, and that maybe that's not answering your question, but
No, it is. It is. Because it sounds like you haven't played a bad guy who's well written and
I
multi-layered.
mean, I have, but I'm still looking for that one, that perfect, that one perfect one. Um,
Yeah.
but someone who there in a LARP a long time ago, a live action role playing. It was a vampire game. I don't know if you're familiar with Vampire the Masquerade, but it's something where it's basically community theater,
Hmm.
and so this particular one was about vampires living on the fringes of society, on the edges, where most people don't know they exist and don't believe them and whatever, believe in them. But I made a character named Tiberius Harkness, who was a very evil, enjoyed being evil, enjoyed doing bad things to people, type of character. But he was also, he wasn't just one trick pony. He was multi-layered. He had, even though he didn't want to promote it, he had weaknesses, he had fears, he had things that were apart from him. Um, but I spent the better part of 5 years developing him before I ever played him, and buying clothing for him, and jewelry, and just different things that I would see that would be like, oh, that is that guy, and that's what I want to help emulate him, bring him to life. And so someone like that, like I would love to be able to have a role that I could devote 6 months or a year into creating this person. But I have a little bit of worry at the back of my head that I will lose myself into that person as well, because that's definitely something that an actor can do. Um, Again, Daniel Day Lewis. As much as I love Daniel Day Lewis, you can lose
Yeah.
yourself into the role.
Is the you're involved with David Nance with the Inhuman protection?
Sort of. He's reached out, and that reminds me, I need to get back to him. He's reached out before, and I was playing I did a brief couple videos with him as the
Hmm.
governor, um, and there was hinting that there might be more to come with him. He might develop into a more fully fleshed out character. But at the time, I had so many things going on at the time, which is another weird thing, which I'm sure you know about the actor's life, is like you get these spurts of like everything is happening all at once, and then there's this long dead zone of nothing, and then
Yeah.
that's plenty of time to question, like, what am I doing with my life? What kind of person am I? Am I any good at all? Does anyone even care? Blah blah blah. And then you're back into the whole, oh shit, now I've got 8 projects in a month I'm doing, and yeah. So
Yeah.
that he reached out right around that time, and so I do need to get back to him. But the Inhumans project is something that I thought was just like a kind of a one shot deal. Didn't realize that he was developing it as a ongoing series, and so I would definitely be interested in doing more with him, um, if and when the opportunity comes up. But yeah, it's there you go. I don't know what else to say about that.
What I know you said you're working on in February the paranormal
Yeah, the
investigators.
Rising Storm.
What else is happening? What else do you have going on in the near future?
That is currently. I just got off my first commercial shoot. Yay for the AHA, the American Heart Association. So that I don't know when that
Congratulations.
commercial. Thank you. Oh, don't know when that's supposed to come out. That one is extra special to me too because my dad died of heart attacks after his ninth heart attack. He survived 8 of them, and the ninth one took him. But it's something that runs in my family and in my mother's side of the family as well. So it's definitely something that I have on kind of on my brain constantly. It's a constant companion
Sure.
with me. So that was
What did
important.
you what did you play in the commercial?
I played a open heart surgery patient. So it was definitely something that you're running through like all the recovery and having to change your eating habits and do the exercise and all that stuff. And we shot 2 days, and um, I don't know how much I can say, but I didn't sign an NDA. There was no NDA to sign, so I don't think I'm in
Yeah.
trouble for talking about it. But yeah, it was a lot of exercise and acting exercise as well, acting like I was exercising to do it. But it was fun. It was great, and it was yet another thing to put in my bag of experiences that I can chalk up to. Okay, I kind of know a little bit more about how to behave on a commercial set, and it's not that much different from indie stuff, from a film set or a movie set.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just got finished with that. I've got the Rising Storm coming up in February and March, I think. They're spacing that out, and then I don't think I have anything else on the docket currently. I've got about 4 different personal projects that I keep trying to encourage myself to get back into. One is a short horror series that I wanted to do called Hatbox, and I wrote the first episode and shot the first episode about a year ago. And then I hit a huge slump and a depression and couldn't get myself out of it to continue. And so I may have to reshoot it. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with that, but I like the idea. Speaking of stories and such, I love with horror, especially. Well, I guess like same with comedy. I like the idea of taking a normal situation and then finding a spin on it that suddenly makes it awful or horrific or very creepy or whatever it might be. And so with
Yeah.
with Hatbox, I thought I asked a bunch of my friends, what would you do if you came home and there was a Hatbox on your porch you weren't expecting? You had no there was no you weren't expecting a package of any kind, and you find it there. And most of them would be like, well, I will leave it there and call the police or something. And it was like that doesn't seem very logical to me. Like, if you're a busy person, I know in my own life, if I'm a busy person and I'm coming home from whatever I've just been doing, and I find a package on the door or on the step, especially if I'm on the phone or if I have something else distracting me, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to pick it up, take it inside, and deal with it later on. And apparently, I'm weird in that way because most of my friends were like, "Oh no, we would never ever do that." But I think they also kind of know me by now and know that if I'm asking something like that, it's not a normal question. So I wonder how much of that affected their answers. But the idea was this guy finds a hat box, he brings it into his house, and then doesn't think about it, and gets busy with his life, whatever. And a day or 2 days later on, he suddenly remembers that it's still there, and then it starts talking to him, and you have to the
Creepy.
the idea is like, is he crazy? Is he having a breakdown because of all the other stress in his life, or is there something actually going on here? Is it surreal? And and yeah, I don't know if it's going to continue. I want to make it into a thing, but I'm still looking for the motivation to get back up on that horse and do that again. Anyway,
Now, are you acting in this too, or are you just
yeah,
writing it?
I was acting, directing, writing, shooting, editing. I was doing the whole thing myself, which is why it's hard to get the motivation to
Wow.
be like, okay, now I'm going to do this
You
for
don't have a crew?
6 hours.
You're just
Well, it was one of the things that at the time it started during the pandemic, the idea for it. But I was like, well, there are so many people now that are worried about being around, including me, being around a bunch of other people when you don't know where they've been, and with COVID being so crazy, and then other things in addition to COVID. um, I started wondering, like, well, how much can I do just on my own? Not only for health reasons, but also I don't have to worry about anyone else being on time. I don't have to worry about, but on the flip side of that, then I am doing everything, and it's all up to me. So I
Yeah.
I don't know yet. I don't know how it's gonna work out, but we'll see.
So David, what's your favorite tech when it comes to the film industry, filmmaking industry? When it comes to gear, lights, apps, whatever you use. What's the one thing that stands out to you?
Well, I mean, as far as filmmaking, editing wise, it's for me, it's been the go-to has been Premiere. But as we have talked about, I want to get into um, uh, DaVinci and learn that. I find I'm fascinated by the rise of and frequency of drone photography and drone
Mm.
footage. Like, I've seen some amazing videos from drone operators recently where they would fly around the block and fly through a movie theater and not hit anything, and it's just gorgeous. And I feel like drone um, drone filming, drone cinematography is going to be a much bigger deal in the future, more than just for aerial shots. But and even in most a lot of recent films, you can tell with a lot of things that they do where they go from one side of the set to another side, or it's outside and they're going up and over and around and down and underneath, and you just can't do that in real life unless you have something like a drone. So for
Yeah.
me, drone uh, technology is really exciting. And my brother has a drone. He's filmed a lot of fantastic nature scenes with it. Um, so yeah, I think that's going to be another big thing. And I am behind the wheel on that one. I don't, or behind the ball. I don't have a drone. I don't know how to operate a drone at this
Is there
point.
one that you've been looking at or
Um,
thinking about?
I forget which, not one that I've been looking at so much, but there's one that he has that um, I don't know what it's called now, but it's a little baby, and it shoots in 4K, and it's just fantastic.
Does he have to wear head goggles?
No, it goes
Okay.
right through the phone, and then he can
Okay.
control it through his phone or with the little. It looks almost like an Xbox controller um,
Yep.
thing that you can fly it around. But he's able to also
Cool.
control the camera through the phone and adjust it and adjust the footage, the frame rate, and a bunch of other things. It's really really cool.
Nice. Sounds like DJI to me.
It might
What are
be.
your thoughts on AI?
Oh, AI. I hate AI. Um, I want AI. I saw a meme on this a while back, and it very much echoed my thing. Like, I want AI to be able to do the chores for us and to do all the work, and like not do all the art and everything else. And when it first came out, Midjourney was one that I'd never heard of until a friend of mine started using it on some of his photos. It looked fantastic with all the filters and the way things are looking, and so I was in the process of uploading a bunch of my photos to it, and then I started reading the fine print and realizing that they were saying that they had ownership to all the stuff, and like, oh, and I'm like, because I'm getting into the acting thing, I don't want to sign away my face to something, especially if it's Russian or if it's propaganda or whatever it might be. And then it came out that um, the AI, the web crawlers were stealing artwork from artists, and that was how it was compiling everything. And that's a big, for me, that's a big no-no. So I guess, long answer short, I don't like AI because of how it is originated and how it's used. If there is a way that we could figure out how to do it without stealing from pre-existing works, I think that would be awesome. And maybe they're already making some headway into that. I have not looked at it in a while, so I don't know. The last thing I saw with AI was it was advertising Meta something or other on Facebook, and how it could take a still photo and then make it moving, but you could also like take footage that you would upload to it, and then add extra footage on to it that didn't happen. that you didn't shoot, and it would look like you had shot it. Like it would look exactly like the person that you were filming. I don't know how they're doing that, but it's like, okay, well, now how do we know that anything is real? If this is possible, if somebody wants to make a photo of shooting someone, some public figure, how do we know that that's a thing? Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary.
I think Adobe, I mean, speaking of Premiere Pro, I think Adobe Firefly is also an AI engine.
Yeah.
I think it was like eight months ago or almost a year ago, they put out a disclaimer saying, yes, we will not steal people's artwork. Because, I mean, Adobe's known for the creative skill set, right? I
Right.
mean, it's Illustrator and Photoshop, but they did acknowledge, or like, we understand the concerns, and they did a 180 and put it in the small print. We are not stealing anybody's images, but that's good.
That
So, David,
that's actually. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's actually one of the reasons I have considered um, ditching, ending my service with Adobe was
Oh,
because of that, the fine print. There was a thing a few months ago, or maybe it was last year. I forget. Time is meaningless now, but there was a huge debacle scandal in the news regarding Adobe and their fine print, which was saying that anything created, any video footage or photo footage or whatever created with their software, they had ownership rights with, same as the creator.
yeah.
And if I recall right, and I may be misremembering, but if I recall right, they they made a minor correction to that the verbiage in there to try and appease people, but it didn't actually stop that legality issue from happening, which is why a lot of people were
Interesting.
just ditching. They were just jumping off board Adobe, and why I was thinking, well, I need to do that eventually because I'm too small to worry about them stealing my artwork or footage
Right.
probably, but at the same time, it's kind of the principle of the thing. If I
Yeah,
if I create something, I want to be able to claim ownership of that and not have it taken. Anyway,
exactly. Yeah. David Stoker, what's the best way people can reach out to you?
maybe through my website. How about that? I was
Okay.
going to say that's a good point. Yeah, the best way to reach me would be through my agent, or if you want to hire me or work with me in any fashion, or through my website, davidastoker.com. And it has all of my contact information, most of my contact information on there, as well as my Twitch links, Patreon, a bunch of other stuff, some photos, things like that.
Awesome. And we'll link all those in the show notes.
Cool.
David Stoker, thank you for coming on the Down and Cut. I appreciate this, and I enjoyed our conversation.
This has been great. Thank you for having me.